Welcome to Hope, helping other people excel. Today we hope to inspire you, we hope to encourage you and uplift you and help you to excel, because we believe here at Hope that a rising tide raises all ships. So that'll help everybody. I want to thank the WCET team. Faith is usually back there working something or other, and so I was joking about without faith there'd be no hope. But so much of that is true in real life even, that we need faith, hope, and of course love. So I want to also thank Pastor Gary Myers, and Heaven is My Home is his television show here on WCET. He's been instrumental in introducing me to Alan and the staff here at WCET, and this is our debut show, so we hope you enjoy it, and we'll have more for you to come in the future. There's an unknown monk around 1100 AD that is accredited for this little poem, I guess it's called, I Wanted to Change the World. And so when I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found that it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. When I found I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town. I couldn't change the town, and as an older man, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realized the only thing I can change is myself. And I suddenly realized that if I long ago had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have made an impact on our town, and their impact could have changed the nation, and I could have indeed changed the world. And you know, that's kind of my story a little bit. It seems like we all get too smart too late, and you know, as a young man, I wanted to change my country. I wanted to change the way things were going. I didn't feel like it was going well, and so I tried to change all of that, and now I'm learning later on in life that I need to change myself first. And so I want to inspire you and encourage you to consider that thought and consider on changing yourself first, because when we change ourselves, like the little poem says, it will have an effect on those around us, our family, our friends, and so on. And in doing so, we'll have a bigger effect on our community in general than to our state and our national government and eventually the world. And so that's really what we've got to do. We've got to start here in our own hearts. So, whoops, I banged on my mic. So I want to start out with that, with a book that Dr. David Schwartz, The Magic of Thinking Big. Great book. It's really been an inspiration to me. I've read it multiple times, and I'm sure I'll read it more throughout my life. But in chapter 1, he says, believe you can succeed and you will. Everyone wants to be the best in life that life can give them. Nobody wants mediocrity. Nobody wants to be second class. The Bible says faith can move mountains. Believe. If you really believe, and not many do, but if you really believe, that's where it starts. That's where starting to change yourself. You've got to change your belief system. And that in turn will have a big effect. There's nothing magical or mystical about belief. When you believe, the I cans turn into the how-tos. And your mind makes up the path that you must take. It discovers the path that you must take to make that happen. So many believe, you know, in the Bible's verse of moving mountains with just faith, that, oh yeah, well, you can't do that. Well, see, there's no faith right there. But if you have the faith, and it talks about that in The Magic of Thinking Big, that if you had the faith and said, you know what, I can move this mountain, your mind will help you come up with a way to make that occur. You know, it may take a lot of bulldozers, it may take a lot of people, it may take some dynamite, but you know, we can, if we believe, we can do whatever it is that we believe. The how-to develops. An example of that is a young woman who had less than $3,000, and she wanted to start a mobile home sales in her town. And she was told that that was impossible. She was going to need way more than $3,000, maybe $30,000, and of course she didn't have that. And she recognized that she lacked capital, she lacked experience, and it was a very competitive market that she was in. But she said to herself, you know, I can do this. I can do a better job than anyone else in town at selling these mobile homes. And 2 years later, she did over $1 million in sales, and expected to exceed $2 million in sales the next following year after that. It was her belief, her strong belief, that triggers the mind to find ways. And her strong belief won her 2 investors, 2 people that said, you know what, we think you can too. Because one of the things that amazing enough, believing causes others to have confidence in you. And so in her belief, and as she portrayed that to other people, she gave faith to them to become investors. And then she also got an advance on some inventory from a supplier for no cost, which was totally unheard of. But this investor believed in her as well because she believed in herself. And so you see, it's really important that you believe in yourself, that you have faith in yourself, and that you nurture that faith and you water that little seed and help it to grow so that you too can have what it takes to move mountains and change things in your world. Frank Betcher, in his book, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling, in his chapter number 1, he talks about how he had one idea that multiplied his income and his happiness. One idea. He was a young baseball player for a small team, and at that team he started out and he really didn't know much about baseball. He was definitely afraid and a little bit nervous, and he got fired from that team. And if he wouldn't have asked his coach what it was that caused him to fire him and to let him go, his coach would have never told him the secret that Frank Betcher needed. And that was, he went to the manager and asked, "Why did you fire me?" And the manager said, "Well, because you're lazy." He said, "You have no ambition. You run around out there, you act like you've got no energy at all, And he said, "Why do you do that?" And Frank said, "Well, I'm not lazy. I'm a good hard worker, but I'm nervous and I'm whatever, I'm just a little apprehensive." And so the coach said, "Well, whatever it is that's causing it, you need to get that fixed, because you'll never be able to play anything or do anything in life as long as you appear to be lazy." And so from that point on, Frank Betcher decided that he was not going to appear lazy ever again. And he went and found a new job, and it was making a whole $25 a month. That might tell you how long ago this was. But he decided when he got to his new job that he was determined to act enthusiastic. And so he went out there and he was enthusiastic. He pitched that ball around the ball diamond as fast and as hard as anybody. And he was just out there and running and just being enthusiastic. And, the key so much times to being enthusiastic is to act enthusiastic. And, so many times we don't feel enthusiastic. We feel lethargic. We don't feel like doing that. But Frank Betcher said, if you act enthusiastic anyway, give it your best. Just be excited. Dig right in and do the best you can. That will go a long ways. And so because of that enthusiasm at his new job at $25 a month, he got a tip from one of the players for a better team. And he got interviewed for the new position, and he got the new position. And there again, he determined to be the most enthusiastic player that there ever had been and that anybody had ever seen. And so he just ran his heart out and he played his heart out, and the news said that he seemed to be electrified with millions of batteries. And his enthusiasm overcame his fears. It infected the other players and made them more enthusiastic. And ultimately, it made the game more enjoyable because they became winners and they started to do really good. So Pep Betsker, as he was called, Pep they called him in the news, he wound up getting paid $185 per month over the $25 a month that just a few months before he was getting. And he commented on how that's an increase of over 700% in just 10 days. That's really amazing that something just as simple as being enthusiastic could raise your pay 700% in just 10 days. And he really wants to emphasize, as do I, that if you go out and you be enthusiastic about what it is and you show enthusiasm, that's going to make a difference in your life, and it could easily make a difference in your pay. In 2 years' time, he ended up playing for the St. Louis Cardinals. Enthusiasm took him there. And he's the first to give it credit. He said, "Enthusiasm changed my life." So I want to encourage you to be enthusiastic. And next, I'd like to encourage you to put service first. And again, Dr. David Schwartz in The Magic of Thinking Big, he talks about you want to make more money, get the put service first attitude. And he tells about a trip to Cincinnati that really impressed me in his book as I was reading it. But surprisingly busy gas station there in Cincinnati. In 4 minutes, he knew why that service station was so busy. it was a full-service gas station, which we rarely see anymore. But maybe we need to see a resurgence of, and maybe that's evidence of the decline of our world, that we no longer provide full service like that. And maybe we need to encourage some of our gas stations to go back to that, because it's that extra. It's that putting service first that makes a difference. But anyway, Frank stopped at this place, and they filled up his gas tank, they checked all of his fluids, and they cleaned his windows, and they checked the air in his tires, but they weren't done. Before Frank left, the clerk, the attendant there, said, "Let me see the inside of your windshield." And so he looked inside, and he decided to wash that, and he washed that off. And Frank said, "You know, that stuck with me." He said, that stuck in my mind, that man took the extra time to not just do what he already did and what they already did good, but he went that extra mile. He did that extra thing. He gave that extra little bit of effort, put service first, and cleaned the inside of Frank's windshield. And Frank talks about how that it definitely improved his night vision. He was able to see better while he was driving at night, for sure. But you know, he comments that after that he made 8 trips to Cincinnati, and he always went to that one particular gas station for gas, and he always got service that was beyond his expectations every time he went. And sometimes he said he went there at 4 o'clock in the morning, and all the other gas stations were vacant and empty, and this one gas station always had business. It always had people there, even at 4 o'clock in the morning, because of their extra service, going that extra mile. And so I want to encourage you too to go that extra mile in your life and to do that extra work. You know, that gas station didn't have a higher price. They were very comparable in all their other ways, but it was in that extra, going that extra mile, that made the difference for him. And you know, he goes on to say he probably put over 100 gallons of gas in his tank at that one gas station, just because they made that impression, that first impression. They went that extra mile for him. So I want to encourage you here to always go that extra mile. And so then next, I'd like to bring you to a book that I've gotten through Life Leadership. It's called Wave Makers, How Small Acts of Courage Can Change the World. And to me, that was an amazing book. It's a book about 7 different people over a period of time. And you know, we could go on and probably name hundreds that became wave makers. But it talks about the power of the ripple effect, and how just a small little motion over here, sometimes a small little pebble thrown in the water, creates ripples throughout the whole entire lake. And these wave makers it talks about, there's 7 of them, and how they did small things maybe, or they put in what seemed to be small efforts in their time, but they did the same kind of thing. They sent ripples throughout history and changed the way that things were done for years and years to come, maybe hundreds of years. Of course, the book talks about how small acts of courage can change the world, and we'd like to encourage you to take those small acts of courage. You are somebody special. You are important, and God made you, and He made you in a wonderful way. And you know, when you talked about how we were conceived, it's amazing when you see the details about how conception occurs, the billions and billions of competitors for that one little egg to fertilize it. It'd be like having a huge cross-country marathon, and everybody's running and running and running, and everybody's competing for the one thing. But in this case, as is the case with your birth, only the strongest, only the best, only the victorious made it, and the rest of them all died. You were the only one that succeeded. You are special. You are important. You are somebody. And when you learn that and you start to really believe that, like we talked about earlier from Magic of Thinking Big, when you start to believe that in your heart and you start to know that you are indeed special and that you can make a difference in your world, sometimes just the smallest things you do can make a huge difference. I know I was talking to Pastor Gary Myers on his show earlier, and you know, he was talking about how you know, he asked God what he could do to make a difference, and God said, well, you see that guy sitting next to you? He needs a ride home. And, just that little act of Gary giving that man a ride home could make such a difference in your world and in his world. And who knows the end result of all of that? It can be just absolutely amazing. In Wavemakers, one of the men that was talked about was a little known man. I had never heard of him. He was, a preacher, I guess. Kimball was his name. I can't remember his first name now. But because of him, his ministry led to one other guy who, started out another church, and they held some services, some special services, and eventually a young man came and got saved at their services, and it changed his life, and that young man became Billy Graham as we know him today. And another one as a result of this man's ministry was Billy Sunday. And so the ripples that occurred from this man in what he thought was just a small little community and a small little church, the ripples he sent through history through Billy Graham and Billy Sunday and some of the other ones that were touched by his ministry really changed the course of all eternity. And so I want to encourage you as that one strong, surviving, the best, one little seed that reached the egg and fertilized it, the one victorious one when all the others died in this cross-country marathon of life. You too can make that ripple difference in your world. You just got to look for that opportunity. You got to look for those small little things that God puts in front of you and allow them to minister to you and allow yourself to be a minister to them and cause that ripple effect. Sometimes it's just that small little movement that can create even tsunamis that we already know about from what happened in Japan and so on. So be a wave maker. The quote at the beginning of that book, Wave Makers, it says, "A ship in the harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are made for." And that quote is from John A. Shedd. And God didn't make you didn't reach that egg, and you didn't become that one miraculous, strongest survivor one out of billions just to set in a safe harbor, just to sit on the beach and watch the waves lap against the shoreline. Ships are not made for sitting in harbor. Ships are made for going out into the storms and weathering the storms and to live the excitement and the thrill of life. And so we want to encourage you to yearn to be out in the open ocean and leading the charge and leading the attack on the status quo and become more in your community. And as we talked about in that early little story about the man who wanted to change the world, if you can just make that change in your community and the people around you and minister to their lives and show them a higher standard of living, a higher standard of character, a higher standard of moral ethics, and you hold that standard up and you hold that standard high in yourself, others around you will see that and be affected by it, and they'll carry that ripple throughout the world and throughout history. And that's how we change our world. That's how we change our nation. I don't think there's too many of us that are happy about the way our nation is going today. I certainly am not. I'm concerned about that, and I have been for years. But I'm finally learning, and I really want to impress upon you and encourage you to also learn that changing ourselves is where it starts. It starts right here in our own hearts, and we need to change things there first. And so many people are ignored, unacknowledged, often ridiculed, and they consider their actions for those of the future. In spite of all the ridicule and all of the unacknowledgement, you may think that your life is insignificant and that you don't interact with too many people. But if you go that extra mile and you wash the windshield on the inside of the car for whatever it is you do, be the best at what you do. That's where it all starts, because as you become the best, others will become the best, and they'll follow your example. We can look at many who may have thought themselves to be insignificant initially in their lives. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, George Washington, and others of our founding fathers, Joan of Arc, Corrie ten Boom. All of these people probably considered themselves, maybe insignificant, and that they didn't have much. But you know what? They had that vision. They had that dream. They had that belief in themselves that they could change the world. They could become a wave maker. And they did. They changed the world for all history. The people who rock the status quo are often drowned, but because of their courage and the sacrifice, the rest enjoy smooth sailing. That's a quote from Stephen Palmer in a book called Uncommon Sense, a common citizen's guide to rebuilding America. And so, I want to encourage you to rock the status quo boat. Be not stuck in the harbor where it's safe and quiet, but step out into the world and make those ripples throughout history. I have a quote here from Robert II. He says, "Be patient with yourself. You are growing stronger every day. The weight of the world will become lighter, and you will begin to shine brighter. But don't give up." And that's something we all need to continue to think about on a daily basis, is we need to have that courage to press on, that courage to continue, even when it seems like we're making no headway or making no effort. Wash the inside of that windshield one more time on just that one more car. Make that difference in one person's life. Give that one person a ride. The other day I was at the grocery store and there was a gal there and she was trying to reach down on the bottom shelf and get a bag of candy, and it was way in the back, and I saw her kind of struggling with that. And so I walked up there and I offered my assistance, and I got down on my hands and knees and I reached way to the back and grabbed that bag of candy and I brought it out and handed it to her. I don't say that to get any courage or any accolades for myself. I didn't do it for any praise. There was nobody else there to see what I did. But the point is that I made that extra effort. I did the little extra. I went that extra mile. I wasn't afraid to get down on my knees and reach way under there and help that lady out. Or to help a lady that's getting out of her car, an elderly lady that maybe needs some help getting in and out of her car, or carrying some groceries, or someone who has boxes that are too many in their arms and they haven't got, they're struggling to try and carry them. Be that person that steps up and give that person that extra hand and go that extra mile. One of my favorite characters growing up, and I suppose probably yours too, was Winnie the Pooh. And in one of his articles or stories, he said, "If there ever is a tomorrow when we're not together, there is something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. But the most important thing is, even if we're apart, I'll always be with you." And we need to always remember that that's the same thing that God says to us. He gives us that encouragement to continue to go on and to try a little bit harder and to go that next day and that next mile, and even when things are tough, to keep on pushing on. And I have found for myself that if I stop dwelling on my problems and my frustrations and my disappointments, and I start trying to help people out, and I get busy and involved with helping them with their frustrations and their problems, all of a sudden I forget about mine, and somehow they manage to get resolved anyway. God manages to take care of them for me, and I know that He'll do the same for you if we trust Him, And so I just want to be an encouragement to you in all those areas. First of all, to believe in yourself, have that faith, know that you can. Know that you're the best. Know that you have the ability. And if you're uncomfortable and you're unsure, maybe just a little bit of studying, a little bit of research might help you to learn some of those things. And so know in your heart that you are the best. Secondly, give it your best. Give it your most enthusiasm. Do the best you can. Be excited about what things go on in your life, and strive to help stir up that enthusiasm in others, and watch as your team comes together and all wants to join you in your whatever it is your efforts are in life, because you showed enthusiasm and you showed that strength and that courage to be excited even when you didn't feel excited. Remember, to become enthusiastic, you must act enthusiastic. So, and then on to Dr. David Schwartz and the magic of thinking big, and put service first. Wash the inside of that windshield, go that extra mile, help those other people when they're in need, those around you, and watch as that rising tide raises all ships. It's going to lift you up. It's going to lift others up around you. It's going to help do what we talked about with the monk in the early on about changing the world. It's going to be that one little step that you change yourself, you change your own thoughts, you change your own belief system, and you start to make a difference in those around you. And it's like the Chronicle of Narnia and the thawing of the Ice Queen as things started to become better in their world. It started out in just a small little spot that there was a thawing and a greening up of the branches and the leaves and the plants, and then flowers started to bloom, and then trees started to green, and pretty soon the whole kingdom was back to being alive instead of frozen, much like Michigan. So, and then lastly, be a wave maker. You know, make those ripples. Look for those opportunities where you can change your world for the better in the future. And so I want to encourage you, and I want to lift you up. You are somebody. You are somebody special. And we hope that you have enjoyed our show today. We hope it's been a blessing to you. And you can send us an email at jim.pate@gmail.com, or you can give us a call at 616-799-0517. Let us know your comments. That number again is 616-799-0517. And give us your comments. Give us a little encouragement too, because we all need encouragement, and we want to encourage each other. By encouragement and education, we bring hope, helping other people excel. And that's the name of our show, and that's a goal of our show, is to help you excel, help you to become somebody, and to help you go places in life, to help change our community and help change our world. To you as individuals, as families, communities, states, restoring our once great country and hope for all the world. Thank you once again for being with us. We thank WCET for our opportunity to share this with you. We hope that you'll find other great shows on their station that you can watch and get good information from as well, and inspiration. Again, we want to thank Pastor Gary Myers and Heaven is Our Home show. He's been an inspiration to us, and so we just want to be a blessing to you all. So go out and be a blessing to everyone else. Thank you very much. God bless you.
One of the greatest gifts you can give your child is time spent reading together. Take 5 today and every day to read with your child. Children love words that rhyme. Rhyming words are important to reading because they call children's attention to the sounds inside words. Say 2 words that rhyme to your child, such as cat and hat. Then ask your child to listen to the words that rhyme. Cat, hat. Then give your child another word that rhymes. Rat. Next, ask your child to think of a word that rhymes with hat and cat. Repeat this game with other words that rhyme. Remember, children become good readers when their parents read with them. It really is as simple as that. So take 5 today and every day to read with your child.
Panasonic digital video camera, $2,000. WCET's Panasonic digital video camera, free. Apple computer with editing software, $12,000. WCET's Apple computer with editing software, free. A higher education, $40,000. WCET's on-the-job training, free. Hands-on experience, priceless.